Hello, this is Allyse, and you are listening to the Daily Mentor Calls. We are on call number 44, and this is a series of 3 calls about placements. We talked a little bit about, in the last call, who you're looking for, so you can find self-reliant leaders, and as you build, have time freedom. And today we're going to focus specifically on the biggest mistakes that we make in placements. And if you know what those mistakes are, you can avoid them in the future, and especially you can teach your team not to make those mistakes when they're starting. So, mistake number 1 is we put product users or sharers on our front line. I see this all over. Like many people have product users and sharers on their front line. Now, I understand why. I really do. And this is usually the reason why we have a lot of product users and sharers on our front line, is because most people come into doTERRA, and they're not wanting to really build a business. They're usually wanting to share or just talk to their sister and their mom about it, or their best friend. And so they have a class, and they have this one class, right? And it's kind of a lot of work to put a class together the way that typically a class is done. We have learned through the Daily Mentor Calls how to make them super simple. But they vacuum their house, which you probably should do anyway. And they make sure that, their spouse takes the kids, and they have a treat there, and they do this display, and, they invite 10 of their friends, and, averages say that 3 of them show up. And so they have this class, and 85% of the people that enroll with doTERRA are product users, right? And then there's a smaller percent that are sharers, and an even smaller percent that are builders. Now, we've learned how to avoid that and how to put the odds in our favor by simply rating the people on our list, our names list, and focusing on sampling to the people that have 5, 6s, and 7s, or and if you don't know how to do this, go back to the beginning of the Daily Mentor Calls. But focusing on those that have the most qualities that we found of people that become successful. But if they're not doing that, and they're doing it, the average way, people come to a class, maybe 3 people show up, 1 or 2 people purchase. And after they've done all this work, and the class is over, and there's maybe 2 product users that come out of it, or if they're lucky, a product user and a sharer that purchase, right? They think to themselves, whew, that was a lot of work. I'm going to wait for a couple of weeks to have my next class. So what happens is they miss that 14-day window, right? And they have to place them somewhere. I mean, these are the first people that come to the table. So, they place them. If it's a sharer that came, they place the sharer on their front line and the product user underneath. If it's 2 product users, sometimes they even put the 2 product users on their front line, next to each other. So they're trying to get the power of 3, and they're like, I get 1 more, and, I have a $50 bonus, but they set themselves up, right, to not have committed and capable leaders on their front line. So I understand why it happens a lot. And for some people, it's months and months into the business until they decide, I really want to do this as a business. So as an upline, when we have people coming, to the table that are wanting to share and build, if we teach them, first of all, we have, let's launch your business properly. If they're builders, if they're sharers, they're not going to want to do this. Let's launch it properly and do the program 6 weeks to Elite. If you don't know what that program is, go back to the Daily Mentor Calls under 6 weeks to Elite. And so there's a lot of activity happening in those first 2 weeks. So we get a lot of people coming in, so we can choose out of those people who are committed and capable. And the more people that we expose, the more people that, are rated higher, usually on characteristics of successful doTERRA distributors, the more people we have to choose from, and we don't have to put product users and sharers on the front line. Now, I think we all know this. And we know that this is an issue that's happening a lot. And we know that, once we have this issue, how do we solve it? Well, we're going to talk about that in the next call. But I want to deeply impress upon you what happens when we actually put product users and sharers on our front line. Well, what happens is, here we have a product user, and then we have a next class, and we're starting to, build people and place people underneath them. And those people are connected to us, and we're doing all the work in that leg. And then we put up another leg, and maybe it's a sharer. They're not super committed, but they'll have classes. And so we start building another leg, and then possibly another leg that's a product user and a sharer. So literally, we don't have any committed and capable people on our front line. So we're working way, way, way too hard with all of these people that are connected to us, that want us to do classes and want us to do strategy calls or want us to answer questions. But the hardest thing is that once you start building these legs and you start getting volume under these legs, right? You have 1,500 here and 2,000 here and 2,800 here, and you're really wanting to go silver. Well, it's super difficult for people to just let those legs go or to start a new leg. I hear it so often. They say, I've already put so much work into this leg, like I have to keep supporting it. Well, what we're choosing to do with that mistake is we're choosing to constantly drag someone that either is a product user and will just get paid off of our efforts, or as a sharer and they're not really committed. So we want the business more than them. And because we're so busy doing all the work that they should be doing, right? We don't even have time to go out and find committed or capable leaders or rebuild legs, or build another leg. And this is where we get stuck. And I've seen people literally hold on to these organizations for years, working like a diamond, getting paid like a silver. And so it's incredibly important that we understand this mistake. Mistake number one, we put product users and sharers on our front line. So we're not going to do that anymore, right? We're going to make sure that we're going to know what we're looking for. We're going to, test them before, and we put on our front line committed and capable people. So mistake number two. Mistake number two is putting family on our front line. And oh my goodness, do I get backlash for this one. But if you saw what I saw with thousands of people building, and I've seen these and worked with hundreds and hundreds of them, right? It is an absolute mistake to put family on your front line. Let me give you a couple of reasons. Number one, the most important reason is that your family relationships over time are, I'm not going to say harmed, but they definitely are stressed. And let me tell you why. Because no longer is it just we go, to family reunions or we sit down at mom's house for Sunday dinner and we talk about the family and the kids. We're business partners now. And we're talking about business, and everything becomes business, and they feel like they should get, extra attention. Or if you sign up a new leg, why didn't you put them underneath me? Or how about this one, right? How can you hold your family accountable? If I put my mother on my front line, how could I hold my mother accountable? I can't call her up at the end of the month and just say, Mom, you still have 1,100 in volume. What are you going to do about it? She'd be like, don't you talk to me like that, young lady. I mean, you can't hold them accountable. And so I don't ever want my family to be on my front line, and they haven't. They've always been placed either second or level or lower, so they can have somebody else that holds them accountable. They can work together as a team, and I can have just a regular relationship with my mom, a mom-daughter relationship. I have a brother also that wasn't put on my front line. He's second level, and he has a really large team, right? And he's building his organization in Canada and Florida and, all over the US. But every time we meet, we don't talk about doTERRA. We talk about our families, right? And yeah, we have some questions every once in a while, but we have kept our family relations intact. We had somebody on our team levels down, and she was really a go-getter. This mom was a go-getter. She had 7 daughters. 7 daughters, and she put all of them frontline. Boom, 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 boom. And she became Diamond, but it caused so much stress with her family, and it hurt relationships so badly. Because when you go to the family reunion, who signs up like Aunt Edna, right? Or there's fights over, why are you doing this? Or how come I didn't get that? Or why aren't you giving me more time? Or, or just simply, gosh, I want to talk about something different than doTERRA sometimes. And she actually, even as a Diamond, quit the business because she said, this is not worth it. Well, for those of you that still don't believe me, I was doing a training and 2 sisters were there. One of them was upline, one of them was downline, right? They were right underneath each other on the other one on the front line. And the upline, the sister, I was teaching this principle and she said, that hasn't been a problem with us. We've built beautifully together. After the class was over, her sister walked up to me and said, guess what? It is a problem with me. It's my relationship with her. So keep your family relationships intact, and you need to be able to hold your frontline accountable. You need to be able to, say hard things sometimes, or just say, hey, we need to do this differently. And you need to step up to the plate. It's very hard to do with family. So I am just like you. I hear people say all the time, well, if I'm going to do anything, and if I'm going to build a business at all, I want it to be benefiting my family. I'm the same way. My mother at, 60 years old was cleaning houses, and I desperately wanted her to get out of cleaning houses, but I did not put her on my front line. And I waited until I was financially free. And then I placed her, not on my front line, but down in my organization. And her upline and me, we placed someone on her front line that had tons of potential. And we did decide to work with them a lot. It was a decision I made for my mom, but not frontline and not when I was not financially free. I had to set myself up first. It's kind of like when you're in the airplane and they say, hey, take the mask and put it on your face first, and then you can help the next person. Because if I'm not financially solvent, I can't help anyone. I can't give resources to anybody. So that has to be the first goal, right? And this person on my mother's front line became huge. They're a presidential diamond, right? And, she did what she could, but she's older, and it has given her retirement for the rest of her life. And so I totally believe in helping family, right? But let's not do it on our front lines where we have to have committed and capable leaders that we can work the business together and hold them accountable. Now, if you've already done this, and if you're saying, oh my gosh, what do I do now? Well, wait till the next call. We're going to talk about solving these issues, because a lot of us have messes. We make a lot of mistakes, right? But we need to know what those mistakes are, or we'll keep making them. We'll keep making the mistakes, and then we'll let literally our leaders make the same mistakes. Now, I literally tell my leaders that come and work with me, I want to work with you. But if you choose, it's your business and you can choose. But if you choose to put your family on your front line, then you choose not to have support from me from that leg. And they're like, why? And I said, well, because I know exactly what's going to happen. I've seen it 100 times. In 6 months to 12 months, you're going to want to be replacing that leg or filling holes, and you're going to be sad. So I choose, I want to spend my time wisely, and I choose not to put time into something where I know it's going. So that's fine. If you want to do that, you can do that. That's your business, but I choose not to support that. And usually they say, okay, well, maybe I'll think, about it differently. I'm like, I think that's a good idea. Okay, next, mistake number 3, not placing people by location. Now, I'm going to explain this to you. It's really important if we want time freedom and if we want, if we don't want to be like working with tons of people all over our organization, so we can have the time to find more people, or the time to spend more time with our kids, or the time, to travel, or whatever we want time freedom for, or a combination of all three, which is what I wanted, right? It's important that we place people that we find and we sign up, because not all the people that we sign up are going to be committed and capable, right? So that means that we have to place them somewhere in our organization, and that we place people where they will be supported by a local team. For instance, if you have a leg in California, and you have a leg in Texas, and you have a leg in New York, and let's say you're trying to go for silver, and your leg in California is doing awesome, and your leg in New York is doing great, but you're low, you're missing volume in your Texas leg. So let's say you live in California, so it's easier for you, to find people in California and to sign people up. And so at the end of the month, you're going to be very tempted to do something. And that is, if you have somebody sign up for, a natural solutions kit, and you have this PV, or this PV coming in, it's going to be so tempting for you to put that person into the Texas leg, because it will boost that volume and it will help you hit silver. Well, this is very short-term thinking. It's not long-term thinking, because that person in California, there's no way they're going to be supported by the Texas leg. They're not going to fly over and help a sharer or a product user or even a builder, most of the time. So who gets to support that leg? Well, you have to. You do. And this is not your front line, right? We support our front line, and our front line supports their front line. And that's the way that we have financial, not only financial freedom, but time freedom and self-reliant leaders, right? So if you place them in the Texas leg, you are signing yourself up to have another front line or to support this person. What if you did that 20 or 30 times in your organization? Can you see how fast your time gets eaten up by these things? So many times I look at people's organizations and I see their placement structure, and I look at them and they're maybe premiers or silvers, and I just say, "You're tired, aren't you?" And they're like, "Oh my gosh, you have no idea." And I'm like, "Do you see all of this that's going on? You're doing the work of a diamond, but you're getting paid as a premier or a silver." And so that is the third mistake. Place them by location and try and cluster them where they'll be supported best. Okay? Next, mistake number 4. I'm only going over 4 mistakes, so don't get overwhelmed. This is the last one, okay? Stay with me. You need to place people according to relationships. For instance, you keep your family together. If you have a work group and they all, have signed up for doTERRA, and that's where you sample and you talk about classes, you keep that work group together as much as possible. If you have girls that you go running with in the morning, and they're all into natural health and they're all into essential oils, and most of them have signed up with doTERRA, you keep them together. So let me give you an example of where it gets bad. And this one causes probably the most drama, besides the family one. This one causes the most drama, more drama than the others. I would say family is the first one, and then this one. So let's say you run with a group of girls every morning, right? And one of the girls that hasn't signed up comes to you and says, I've really been thinking hard about doTERRA, and I'd really like to sign up with doTERRA. And how can we make that happen? And you go, well, that's fantastic, right? Well, let's say you have a work leg, and you have church leg, and you have this running group leg, and there's other random people there, but it's mostly those. Well, everybody's doing great except for the work leg. And you want to go silver, and you're missing volume. So you take that person in your running group and you put them into your work group. And are the work people going to support her? They don't even know her, right? I mean, they can try if you introduce them to one of the leaders, but who's going to be supporting her? Well, the girls that go running with her every morning. They're the ones that have probably been talking about oils, and she'll say, hey, can I come to one of your classes? And so this causes problems because they come back to you and say, we have to support her. We're answering all of her questions. She's our friend. Why wouldn't you have put her underneath us? And your excuse is, well, because I needed short-term volume and I wasn't thinking about relationships. So relationships are super important. Try to keep those relationships together. Now, the last question is, what if you have to make a decision between placing them in relationships or placing them by location? I'll give you an example. Let's say your mother is signed up and there's a lot of people underneath her, like the aunts and the cousins or whatever. And your mom lives in Utah. Well, this girl that's signing up, she's not just a girl. Let's say she's an aunt. She's her sister. Let's say she's her sister. She lives in California. And the California team could take care of her because, that's where she lives and that's the location. But she's your mother's sister. So what trumps there? Do we place her by location or do we place her by relationship with mom? We always place by relationship first over location because that becomes it hurts relationships and it causes drama. And there's nothing worse than feeling like you're trying to do your best. You're trying to build people. You're trying to help people. You're trying to bless people with essential oils and people are mad at you, right? That's hard. So as a quick review, the 4 biggest mistakes that we make, and please avoid them, is number 1, putting product users on or sharers on our front line. Number 2, putting family on our front line. Number 3, not placing by location. And number 4, not placing by relationships. I hope you learned a lot. I hope you now know what not to do and go to the next call, the mentor call, because now you're going to find out, after you've made all these mistakes, how to solve the problems. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.